This is Tim Bryce with my column entitled The Wit of Groucho Marx. Today's style of humor can probably best be described as in your face, meaning it leaves nothing to the imagination. It's very graphic. Back when radio was the primary entertainment vehicle, comics had to be more precise in their language in order to paint a picture for their audience. Comedians such as Jack Benny and Fred Allen understood this and used it to conjure up images, as did Fibber McGee and Molly. The king of oratory, though, was Groucho Marx, of Marx Brothers fame. Whereas his brother Chico portrayed an Italian and Harpo the fun-loving mute, Groucho was charged with keeping the dialogue moving along with wisecracks. His genius was his ability to twist grammar and capitalize on the double entendre of the English language. As a listener, you had to pay attention or you might miss one of his throwaway lines. You just couldn't see it coming. By doing so, he exhausted listeners due to the mental gymnastics he put you through. His more legendary lines include, "One morning I shot an elephant in my pajamas. How he got into my pajamas, I'll never know. I never forget a face, but in your case, I'll be glad to make an exception. I've had a perfectly wonderful evening, but this wasn't it." Who are you going to believe, me or your eyes? If I held you any closer, I'd be on the other side of you. Marriage is a wonderful institution, but who wants to live in an institution? When I invite a woman to dinner, I expect her to look at my face. That's the price she has to pay. Those are my principles, and if you don't like them, well, I have others. Margaret Dumont was one of his favorite foils in his movies. Here are a couple of examples of the banter between the two. Dumont begins by saying, "Why, that reminds me of my youth." Groucho, "He must be a pretty big boy by now." Groucho asks, "Do you follow me?" "Yes." "Well, you better stop following me or I'll have you arrested." Groucho asks, "Why don't you marry me?" Dumont says, "Why, marry you?" Groucho replies, "You take me and I'll take a vacation. I'll need a vacation if we're going to get married. Married. I can see you right now in the kitchen bending over a hot stove, but I can't see the stove." Dumont says, "Oh, I'm afraid after we're married a while, a beautiful young girl will come along and you'll forget all about me." To which Groucho replies, "Don't be silly. I'll write you twice a week." Groucho also had the ability to make the listener think. For example, "Do you mind if I don't smoke? I sent the club a wire stating, 'Please accept my resignation. I don't want to belong to any club that will accept people like me as a member.' Practically everybody in New York has half a mind to write a book, and does. A woman is an occasional pleasure, but a cigar is always a smoke. Wives are people who feel they don't dance enough. My favorite poem is the one that starts 30 days hath September, because it actually tells you something. What do you get when you cross an insomniac, an agnostic, and a dyslexic? Someone who stays up all night wondering if there is a dog." That joke went over a lot of people's heads. I also saw him participate in a roast of Johnny Carson at the Friars Club. His description of his dressing room was excellent, and the video is available on YouTube.
Let me give you an idea of the friendship Johnny Carson and I have for each other. I was on Johnny Carson's very first Tonight Show 6 years ago. I'll never forget the first night I met him. And heaven knows I've tried. I was in my dressing room. At least that's what they said it was. It was the only dressing room I ever saw with 12 sinks. He rushed in, dropped some change in the machine, bought a comb, a nail clipper, got a squirt of perfume, and left. The last time I saw him was about 40 minutes ago. I had the same dressing room. 2 sinks had been removed. He came in and said, "Boy, am I glad you're here. The nail clipper doesn't work." Well, for your information, Mr. Carson, the perfume's worn off, too.
And yes, it was Groucho who asked, "Who's buried in Grant's tomb?" I'm still amazed how many people never got it. Through his use of the English language, Groucho exhibited a playfulness with his audience, which endeared them to him. Sometimes his comments were suggestive, others were more innocent. He never had to be crude to captivate his fans. He just had to make them think. Friends, keep the faith. This is Tim Bryce in Palm Harbor, Florida. Follow me on the internet at timbryce.com.